Hey everyone, welcome back to another Grand Archive Fractured Crown Top 5 video. As we are heading towards the launch of Grand Archive Fractured Crown on August 25th, we are hyping up the set with some top 5 videos showing off some of the various facets of the set that we think are just super exciting. And in this video, we're looking at the top 5 material deck cards. So these are cards that go into your material deck, and I think I did take special effort here to not cover the same card twice in different top 5. So the thing about this video is that I think like all of the new material deck cards are super good. There's nothing that I think is just like a card you can't play. So I think it's really just going to come down in some way to preference. But see, these are some of the ones that got me the most excited. And I think you may have your own list of top 5 material deck cards as well. And if you do, let me know in the comments what you think you would have picked for the top 5 material deck cards. So without any further ado, let's jump right into our top 5 material deck cards in Grand Archive Fractured Crown. All right, so at number 5, at this point, if you guys know, I can't help but cheat. So number 5, we're going to put 3 cards in as our number 5 slot. And again, it makes sense. It's a cycle of cards. This is the Protective Trinket cycle. These are Azure Protective Trinket, Crimson Protective Trinket, and Viridian Protective Trinket. Azure Protective Trinket is a 0-cost regalia item with Banish Azure Protective Trinket. Banish up to 3 target fire element cards from a single graveyard. So all 3 of these trinkets provide you some way to hate against these different elements. The fire one allows you to banish up to 3 target fire element cards from a single graveyard. Now, this is quite a powerful ability. It's actually stronger than it looks because as this is a fast speed ability, you can activate this in response to a Rending Flames attack trigger or to the activation of an Erupting Rhapsody, which will allow you to banish those fire element cards before your opponent is able to, forcing them to play that card, but greatly reducing the amount of value that they're going to get out of it, the amount of damage they're going to push on you. So really cool card. And all of these, by the way, are in conjunction with another card on this list are going to be very strong. So keep that in mind. The one that protects against wind is going to, you can banish it to make target opponent reveal 2 cards at random from their memory. Banish each wind element revealed this way. This one fittingly costs 1 because holy smokes, that can be a powerful ability. I mean, straight up just getting rid of 2 of your opponent's cards, especially if you're able to play this off of a floating memory or something, is going to feel very, very, very strong. In particular against wind, this is going to really hurt them in some interesting ways. For example, wind has lots of effects like Windstream Mutt that want to reveal wind cards from their memory, so they're already interested in putting those there. You can use this in response to the Mutt's on enter ability to prevent them from getting that value, and you're going to guarantee when they play that card, they're putting wind element cards in there to activate it. So it's gonna hurt the opponent a ton if you play this fairly proactively against them. And especially if you're trying to take them out and they go for the card that everybody hates to see played against them, Veiling Breeze, which prevents your damage, prevents you from winning the game. In response to the Veiling Breeze, you can go ahead and use the Crimson Protective Trinket. And when you do that, you not only hurt their influence, but you will lower the amount of damage they're going to prevent to potentially allow you to still win the game. So very, very powerful card there. And makes sense that one costs 1. And now Viridian Protective Trinket is the one that hates on water. And this, I have to mention, has an errata already. This card, unfortunately, was misprinted. It was not supposed to have Banish Viridian Protective Trinket on it. It is uniquely the one that has a constant ability. Viridian Protective Trinket simply says, during your turn, water element cards your opponents activate cost 2 more to activate. And because it is not a one-shot effect, because it's actually a card that sits out there and always does that statically, that is an extremely potent card to the point where I have to wonder how good water is about to be in set 2 that this has to exist. Water is already getting a ton of very, very cool interaction effects in addition to already having water barrier. And that is going to make it so it's very hard for an opposing water deck to interact with you on your turn. Quite a powerful ability, and I'm not sure water doesn't really have a lot of ways to really deal with the item when it's on board. So it's definitely powerful and it's important to keep in mind, but these are an exciting set of cards because I think all 3 of these are very playable hate cards for particular matchups. If there's one matchup that your deck is weak against, I think putting one of these in your material deck will be a good idea to shore up that matchup. And with, like I said, another card on this list later, you can actually make them even more powerful, make it harder for your opponent to not walk right into them. So number 5 is the Protective Trinket Cycle. Very powerful cards. All right, number 4 on the list is Zephyr's Edge. This is an innocuous seeming 0-cost wind regalia weapon warrior sword. And of course, in Fractured Crown, we are starting to get some of these basic element material deck cards, which is very exciting, going to help differentiate the playstyle of different decks. And I think Wind Lorraine decks are really going to be looking to play Zephyr's Edge quite a bit. It's going to be a very solid card because this is a 0-cost sword that even on its own, without this class bonus on enter ability, it's a 1-attack sword that has 2 durability, which can be very nice. So Lorraine level 1 can play this for free, first of all, because it's a 0-cost sword. And now it has this class bonus on enter. If it's not your materialized phase, it gets +1 attack until end of turn. And that is actually a pretty nice ability. There are some cool things you can do to play that. Of course, you can use cards like Beseech the Winds just to play it out and get that extra attack if you need it sometime in the middle of the game. It has a nice implication with Lorraine level 3 Spirit Ruler, who can grab it, put more durability counters on it, and if you use Dungeon Guide or Beseech the Winds to level into Spirit Ruler, then you're able to get that class bonus as well, which is nice. And I think a really cool thing that you need to think about with this card is that what it adds to Spirit Blade and Soul. Spirit Blade and Soul is already a combo style deck that was just trying to find enough material deck cards in material deck swords to get enough lethal damage on board. And Zephyr's Edge is not only another sword to add to it, but it's one that when you're playing in Soul, it won't be your materialized phase. So it will come in and it will have that +1 attack until end of turn already. So it's actually a 2-power sword on its own, which is something that you're just kind of sorely lacking. A lot of the random swords you run are just 1-power random swords. So very nice to have that in the Soul decks. I think Wind Lorraine's just going to like this quite a bit. Might potentially, even in the non-Ensoul builds, might just replace one of its other 0-cost swords with the Edge, because on the off chance you can Beseech the Winds it into play or something, or Spirit Ruler it on a Dungeon Guide, it gets some extra benefit, and otherwise that 2 durability is just nice to have. So it's a bit of a subtle pick, but it's one that I think you're going to see quite a bit of. Zephyr's Edge, it's our number 4. All right, number 3 is another Wind material deck card. Wind is really getting some nice stuff in this set, which is very good. It is a 0-cost card called Effigy of Gaia. Now, this is a Tamer card, and if you know anything about the Grand Archive metagame so far, it's that Rise playable, Lorraine's playable, Xander is pretty playable, and Sylvie was effectively, very difficult to play at a competitive level, but Fractured Crown is giving Tamer a lot of goodies, and this is definitely one of them. Effigy of Gaia is going to make me very interested in playing Wind Tamer in particular, because this 0-cost Tamer Bauble is basically like Beastbond Ears with upside. It has class bonus. Your champion gets +1 level as long as you control an animal or beast ally. That's just straight up the text on Beastbond Ears already. And then has, whenever an opponent activates an attack card with Cleave, animal and beast allies you control get +2 health until end of turn. So this is going to give you this built-in sitting on board. If the opponent tries to cleave away all your animals and beasts, that's one of the weaknesses of the Tamer deck, is that Lorraine is a popular deck and Lorraine can often just cleave your board away. The Effigy of Gaia is going to make it a lot harder for you to lose a bunch of animals and beasts, and more importantly, prevent the opponent from drawing quite as many cards with Lorraine on their turn, which is where they would just then kind of snowball and end up taking you out of the game, which is part of the reason that Tamer was just not very playable. So I really love this card. It is not like, boom, like huge game ending card, but this just on its own shores up weaknesses that Tamer has. It enables your pride attacks, and it makes it hard for them to take out your board. Great card all around. I think any Wind Tamer deck is going to put this in the material deck. Straight up. Every Wind Tamer deck is going to play this. I'm personally going to be trying a lot of Wind Tamer builds to try and make this work, because I think there's some juice in there now, but we have to figure out how to squeeze the deck to extract it. So that is our number 3 pick, Effigy of Gaia. All right. Number 2 is Erandite, Azure Blade. This is a water regalia weapon warrior sword. This has 1 cost. It has 1 attack, and it has 2 durability, and it has class bonus. On enter, you may banish any amount of cards with floating memory from your graveyard. For each card banished this way, put a refinement counter on Erandite. Erandite gets +2 attack for each refinement counter on it. I love this idea. I love this card. This is obviously, actually, if you're looking at the art too and you look at Mordred, this is Mordred's sword. And this is basically telling you, okay, if you want to play Water Mordred, this is the game plan. Your Water Mordred deck is going to be focused on trying to get a turn when you can safely play Erandite and crash in for a lot of damage. And it has 2 durability, so you can do it more than once, which is really awesome. Erandite is just an exciting build around me card. Water already kind of has this build going where it's like, okay, jam a lot of floating memory, make it in. And Mordred's ability is all your attack cards get floating memory when they're in your graveyard. So this is probably my number 2 list that I'm going to be looking at trying to build and trying to make work, at least at a local level, if not a competitive one, where you just jam lots of floating memory, a lot of the waterways manipulating your deck and milling cards, and a lot of attack cards. You go to level 2 and you try and play an Erandite and just slam a ton of refinement counters on it and bash the opponent for like 21 damage or something. That's the dream. That's the goal. Can it happen? I'm not sure, but it sure makes me excited to see it, which is why it has to be on my list. Erandite is just such a cool card. Very cool. And it's always nice to have an SR that you only need 1 copy of too. Really like that. Always great. So that is my number 2 pick, Erandite, Azure Blade. All right, and the number 1 pick, if you've been paying attention to spoiler season at all, you know what this is. This is Quicksilver Grail. This is the 2nd Divine Relic in the game, meaning now when you're building your deck, you have to make a choice. Do I want to play Grand Crusader's Ring or do I want to play Quicksilver Grail? You cannot include both of them in your deck because they both have the Divine Relic keyword. So how does Quicksilver Grail stand up to the ubiquitous play of Grand Crusader's Ring? Well, I think it does. I think this is certainly a card worth testing out in your deck. This has, on enter, banish a non-champion card from your material deck face down. Banish Quicksilver Grail, you may play the banish card, you still pay for its costs. This card is super, super, super spicy. In the right situations, you want to think about this from a competitive perspective. You want to think about how many of these cards, like the protective trinkets we were looking at earlier, like Safeguard Amulet, like Nullifying Lantern. How many of these cards that once you put them in play, your opponent's game plan starts to revolve around, okay, how do I play around that? How do I play around that card and still win the game? When you put the Quicksilver Grail in play and you banish something face down, your opponent does not know what you are playing around at that point, especially in a game 1 setting when the opponent hasn't seen you attempting to play around them and guess what they're playing. The opponent might think, okay, well, I'm not sure what they've banished face down, so I'm just going to play into it and find out. And at that point, then you're able to spring the card on them. So for example, they go for a Rending Flames and you go, okay, in response, banish Quicksilver Grail, play Nullifying Lantern. Now, all your cards in your graveyard are Norm Element, so your Rending Flames cannot get its damage doubled. You can do stuff like that. Your opponent can go for the Advent of the Stormcaller, and boom, surprise, my Safeguard Amulet is what I banished earlier, so now I'm going to pop Safeguard Amulet and completely blank the damage from Advent of the Stormcaller. That kind of stuff is going to be super powerful when you can predict things correctly. So it is going to require you to do some amount of prediction. The really cool thing about this too is that if you just were to jam your Nullifying Lantern out, you're playing against the Fire deck, you're playing it, for example, if you're playing against the Merlin deck list we posted most recently, and they are going for the Erupting Rhapsody combo, you know that already. So if you just play the Lantern out against them, they're going to spend their game digging for a way to get rid of the Lantern. Once they do, they're going to play it, get rid of the Lantern, boom, they're done. If you play Grail and banish Lantern, now as soon as they find their card that gets rid of your Regalia, they have to target the Quicksilver Grail with it. Then you banish it, and now you can put the Lantern into play. And now that you've done that, they need to find another card to banish the Lantern. Even though, now they know it's there, but it at least protects that Lantern so that they need to now find 2 ways to get rid of it in order to enable their Erupting Rhapsody in order to win the game. That is certainly, all those and more are certainly the reasons why I think Quicksilver Grail is a card, not to mention just anytime a card like this introduces mind games with your opponent. One thing you can do with Quicksilver Grail is banish it and grab instead of like a reactive Regalia, you can grab something that draws a card in some way and banish that. And now the opponent is going to play around you having what they think is the obvious pick. They'll be like, well, of course they banish Safeguard Amulet. Of course they banish that. So I'm gonna wait, and I'm not gonna try and use Advent to win the game. I'm gonna try and find something else. And then when you're ready to win the game, you spring in and you go, actually, I'm just going to draw another card. And now I have enough cards to take you out of the game. So that is, I mean, like all that and more. This is a powerful, powerful regalia. Certainly worth considering over Grand Crusader's Ring in the right deck. I think you're still going to play GCR when you're playing a deck that just is really, really vying for those extra cards in hand. I think some of those new Serene Spirits that are Glimpse 6, Draw 6 instead of Draw 7, if your deck is using that as your level 1 spirit or your level 0 spirit, you are going to already be down cards, and it might be kind of greedy to try and play Quicksilver Grail in addition to that. You might want to keep playing that Grand Crusader's Ring, but if you're playing a Draw 7 spirit, an original spirit, I think you might find that, especially if there's more people in the general meta playing fewer cards in hand, you might not need to be getting that extra card to keep up, and you might get a lot of benefit from playing Quicksilver Grail instead. So very cool card. I can't wait it. And also, I mean, look at this art. It looks super good. The foil of this card is going to look absolutely amazing. I know it. So very pumped about this card. Very cool and very, very fitting card for our number 1 on the top 5 new material deck cards in Grand Archive Fractured Crown. So that's going to do it for this list. Like I said, there were so many good ones. It was really hard to pick them. So if you guys let me know down below what you think in the comments are the most powerful, most exciting, or most fun new material deck cards in Fractured Crown. Those are just my picks, but I'm sure you'll have your own, and I'd love to hear from you. And that's going to do it for this one. Check out our other top 5 lists as well if you're excited about Fractured Crown, and make sure you swing back in August because we will be publishing a full set review as well as a bunch more kind of critical, in-depth discussion of the cards in Fractured Crown. Super excited to play it though. I think Weaves of the Shore knocked this set out of the park. Very fun stuff. Can't wait for more, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video today. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching another Main Deck video. You can support Main Deck by shopping at tcgplayer.com using our affiliate link. Check the description of the video for details. Main Deck is sponsored by J-Dubs Sports Cards and Gaming. Visit jwwcards.com and by our amazing patrons. Get exclusive content and other cool perks on the Main Deck Patreon. And hey, while you're here, I bet you'd like one of these videos. Go ahead, click one. I know you're gonna love it.